Welcome to yet another review on our YouTube channel, and today I'm reviewing the new Swarovski DS. As you probably know, this scope was quite hot news this year. It was first shown to public at IWA trade show in Nuremberg at the beginning of the year, I think in March or April, and it was the first of this types of rifle scopes from a premium manufacturers for a really long time. I will explain more about this, about the history of such products later. But the basic point is that long-range hunting is becoming more and more popular globally, not only in Europe or in the US, but globally. People tend to hunt and shoot on far greater distances than they used to do. So this trend first started with the use of small pocket monoculars with integrated laser rangefinders. Then most of the premium producers, European premium producers, started to produce binoculars with integrated laser rangefinder. And then later the trend went into the direction of producing rifle scopes with integrated laser rangefinder. The problem with the use of monoculars or binoculars for long-range hunting is that you change your shooting position while you're preparing to take the shot. You know, you're scanning the surroundings, you're looking at the animal with the binoculars, then you have to change everything to look through the rifle scope. And the first steps into this direction were made by Swarovski really long time ago. They produced the first Habicht 3 to 12 by 50 LRS rifle scope with integrated laser rangefinder, but it was not a big success. Later also the Zeiss produced something similar. It was called the Dia range. I think they stopped the production just a couple of years ago, and they had two models, 3 to 12 by 56, and they had 2.5 to 10 by 50. The Dia range was special because the laser system was outside of the housing of the scope, so it had a really non-traditional looks. Well, all of this, the first Swarovski rifle scopes with the laser rangefinder and then Zeiss, were not that popular. They were a little bit too big. They were the magnification was not really high enough, and so on and so on. Then, I would say about 5, maybe 10 years ago, some entry-level producers tried to do similar things. The first, well, not the first, but the most known was Boris, with this model, with a laser scope eliminator. They made 2 different models, they made even 3 generations, and slowly the market became more and more adopted to this type of products. So this is the reason why all previous products, at least in my humble opinion, all previous products of this category were not so successful because the time was not really right for these products. But now the time is here, because long-range hunting is definitely entering the market through the main gate, and it will be a really important segment. And this is also the reason why the Swarovski DS is so successful. Even in our company, we have our order books opened ever since April, I think, and we have really a lot of orders, so that the factory, the Swarovski, is not able to cope with the demand. The reason is also that with a 25-time magnification, this is a long-range scope. So it does make sense to have an integrated laser inside. So if we look at the basics of this scope, as you can see, it's not really the smallest scope on the market. It is 40 centimeters long, it weighs more than 1 kilogram, it weighs exactly 1090 grams. But I personally think this is not too much. If you look at the tactical scopes, let's say the PM2 from Schmidt & Bender, or the ZP5 from Minox, or Kales K624i. They're all roughly this size and they're all roughly this weight, and none of them have integrated laser. The second thing is that the scope features 40mm tube. This was a big debate on the market if this all new dimensions will be a problem regarding mounting solutions and so on. Well, the basic question was, will the market accept products with such unusual diameters of the central tube? And then what happened, I think 4 years ago, Zeiss came out with a V8 which had a 36mm tube diameter, which was completely uncommon. And then all mount manufacturers raced who will do the mounting for these scopes first. So now I would say there is at least 20 different manufacturers of mounts for 36mm tubes from Zeiss. And I think this is a logical step why Swarovski went into 40mm, because everybody now will produce also 40mm rings. So I think that the tube diameter is not really important anymore. If the product is right, if it's made by a premium producer like Swarovski is, then all mounting producers will definitely provide solutions for mounting of these products, of these scopes. The other thing is also that there was already one company which did scopes with 40mm tubes also in the past, and they are still producing them. It's IOR from Bulgaria, or Romania, I apologize, from Romania. And so some of the producers of mounts already had solutions for 40mm tubes. In general, I would say that the design of the scope is really nice. It looks traditional, even though it's really high-tech. It's half digital. And I like the idea that they kept this like turret look on the upper part of the scope, and all the aspects of the scope in a traditional form. I also think that the size and the weight is not really a problem. I don't think this is too big or in any way. The entry lens is 52mm, so this is a little bit strange. Everybody would expect 56. Also, the light transmission is only 83%. This is quite a sacrifice, but given the fact that long-range hunting is mostly done during daytime, I don't see this as a big problem. They also made sure that the front part is long enough and completely straight so that you can use a clip-on, all clip-on devices for low light use or for nighttime use with this scope. It's made in Austria, it has 10 years warranty. They will provide service for much longer than 10 years, so everything what you expect from Swarovski is here. Also, as you can see, the design, everything is really nice. All controls are really smooth, and basically it's what you expect from Swarovski. So premium class, high quality. If we look at the outside, this is not a turret. It's a battery compartment which houses also the zeroing kit. So they made the traditional look so that they were able to hide in the normal battery, the CR123A, and all the tools you need for zeroing. We will count this later. So, if we go to the reticle, it's only one, it's always illuminated. It's similar like 4AI, which is already known from other Swarovski scopes, but it has a big transparent display integrated into it. So when you use it as a laser range finding rifle scope, it shows you the aiming points. So it takes into account all the ballistics and all the environmental data and so on, and it illuminates a line where to aim when you look at the target. So it also gives you, not only as a holdover for the bullet drop compensation, it also gives you leads on both sides, on the left and the right, for different wind corrections. So you can choose either 5 meters per second or 10 meters per second, 5 kilometers per hour or 10 kilometers per hour wind, or 3 or 6. So it gives you different holdovers for wind correction and bullet drop correction. It also features Swarovski technology. That means when motion sensor detects that there is no movement with the scope for a prolonged period, it turns off automatically. And the same goes if you tilt it sideways, right or left, or upwards or downwards. It just turns off the illumination so that the battery life is preserved and prolonged. This is also known from other Swarovski scopes and also expected to be in a scope of this class. What is really important, others have also tried this technology, this philosophy of showing the correct aiming point and holdover with an illumination. This philosophy came with Boris, but Boris had the display which it has inside of the reticle. It's much less accurate than here in Swarovski, because the difference between two separate lines in this Swarovski is only 1.5 millimeters per 100 meters. 1.5 centimeter per 100 meters. That means 15 centimeters on 1000 meters. So that means that the accuracy is just outstanding. That means that there is no error which would come in to the ballistic calculation and the illumination of the aiming point from the fact that the sensor, the display wouldn't be accurate enough. And this is, I think, the greatest achievement of this scope. So that you can really rely on it, that when it illuminates the correct aiming point, there is no error in this, because they are so dense together that the error is just, it can be dismissed. It's so small. If you go a little bit back to the optics, 5 to 25 magnification range and 52 millimeter objective lens, it's really meant for long range. I do have to say, when you will first look through the scope, you will see that the optics is not really on pair with their Z8 models, which is expected. This scope has an integrated laser inside, so you gain all the long range capabilities, but you lose a little bit of optical quality. And I think because this is their first try in this segment, with next generation in, let's say, 5 years, 7 years, who knows, I think that the optical quality will come closer to the normal non-range finding rifle scopes they offer already. Regarding the reticle is second focal plane base, so it's really thin. You can even choose how thin the illumination lines should be. However, it's a smart reticle, so it acts like a first focal plane reticle. So when you change the magnification, the lines for the holdovers due to the bullet drop will also be changed correspondingly. So that means that if you put the scope on magnification 10, the scope knows that you're on 10, and it corrects all the lines for the bullet drop compensation in the reticle automatically. This is what is really smart. So this reticle gives you all the advantage of a first focal reticle. So all the subtensions are true at all magnifications. You can use it on all magnifications. But at the same time, it gives you the advantage of a second focal plane reticle. So that means that it's really thin on the target. Really smart. This is one of the things I like the most on this rifle scope. I think that this is really a great achievement. If we go to the turrets, so how to zero this scope? You normally zero it on, let's say, 100 meters. You can also choose differently. And the turrets are located here on the objective bell. You have to put out this tool from this compartment. I will come back to this topic. Remove the cap, and then you have the second tool, which is also located in here, which you put on like this, and then you can apply clicks. like this. See, it's a little bit harder to show. I think you got how the system works. Well, I'm not a big fan of this system, how to zero this scope. I think it could have been done a little bit easier. The turrets itself, the click value is 7 millimeters per 100 meters, so 1/4 MOA. There is no really, the click feel is not that good, and there is also almost no click sound. But the idea behind it is that you just zero it once, then you put back the cap on it, and you leave it forever. You do everything else inside in the Ballistic Calculator. The same turret is also for windage on the right side of the scope. The Parallax Adjustment is on the side focus like normal. It goes all the way down to 50 meters, and on the other side it goes to infinity. It clicks on 100 meters. It works nicely, and the idea is that you first adjust the parallax, then you use the laser rangefinding function, then the display gives you the illuminated line for the holdover and for the wind compensation, and then you shoot. Simple, really. Once it is set up, it works perfectly. The other thing what we have to say is that the total elevation range is 1.2 meters, but the internal elevation range on the display is much bigger, so the scope can actually shoot really long distance, because with normal scopes, when you click, you always aim in the center of the field of view. Here, once it is zeroed, you don't click anymore. You just aim lower and lower and lower in the field of view. So it does work on a long range much nicer than if you would need to click. The third topic which I would like to review a little bit is the Ballistic Calculator, and of course how the whole system works. So the laser rangefinder inside integrated in this scope works from 30 meters to 1375 meters. Let's say almost 1400 meters. The Ballistic Calculator works all the way to 1024 meters, if we say rounded 1000 meters. But how do you set everything up? First, you have to zero the scope. So you zero the scope normally without any pressing of the range finding capabilities, without the use of this, without anything. You just zero it as a normal scope with clicks here for elevation and clicks here for windage. And you zero it on 100 meters. This at least would be a good idea. You can also zero it on other distances, but I would prefer 100 meters. Then you put the caps back, and what do you next? You have to connect the scope with your smartphone, where you have the Swarovski DS configurator installed, the app. So as you can see, I have here a normal phone. You see the DS configurator app. You go inside. You see now it's trying to connect. You have to push these two buttons for 3 seconds. Now you see the green light is beeping, and the phone will detect it. You can see it now, it's connected. And now you calibrate your ballistic data. First, what is the sight height above the bore, then the ammunition. I just took the data which I'm using. As you can see, you can just use any ballistic data from the normal manufacturers. Let's say I will choose, I'm using 2 different ammunitions in my rifle, so I will try and find the second one, the Lapua. This one, as you can see. So I choose all the information needed directly from the database from the manufacturer, but you can also use data from hand loads. You can use anything inside if you wish, and you also have the expert mode if you wish. So there is really a lot of data you can put inside so that you get the precision you wish. Okay, the condition when it was zeroed and the zero range. Then you can choose the other thing. You can choose if the display inside of the scope shows you also the knockdown power, and then the wind strength. You always have two leading points on the left and on the right, depending on the wind speed, and you can choose 3 meters per second, 6 meters per second, or 10 meters per second and 5 meters per second. I made a mistake in the beginning of the video. I said kilometers per hour. Now it's in meters per second. So these leading points, they give you a good orientation how much you have to compensate for the wind. But in general, if you do a lot of long range shooting, you know that this is the most difficult part to master. The wind is always the problem. So, but still, it offers you the possibility to correct the wind if you have enough knowledge and to know how. Then the display time, that means when you push the button for how many seconds the display will show you the aiming point, the holdover. Then you can choose the point size. I choose small, and the line thickness. And now you can see the presentation, how this works. You see, it shows you how it works. I see that the meters don't go in the right direction. Yeah, because the center should be the closest. I think that they have to repair this in the app. It was probably programmed by someone who is not really working with the ballistic, but you can understand. You see the leading points left and right for the wind, and the central point you see for the holdover. And I can tell you, we tested the scope on the range. It works. It really works. We had like first time hits on metal plates, on gongs, on really like 700 meters without a problem from people who don't really do long range shooting. When you inputted all the data, you just transfer it to the scope. And now the scope will work. Okay, everything was transferred. Oh, now it's working well. Now you see the meters go all the way to 100. And that's it. Well, what is also really nice with this scope is that it doesn't take into consideration only the distance to the target, but it takes also into all the ballistic calculations the angle. So if you're shooting downwards or upwards, it has a limitation. If the angle is more than 30 degrees, then it doesn't work, the ballistic calculator doesn't work to 1000 meters. It works to 650 or something like that, to 600, which is normal, because if you shoot really high up or really at the steep angles, it's normally that you will not shoot on 1000 meters. It takes into the consideration the pressure, the air pressure, so that means on which, if you're in the mountains or if you're at the sea, that affects the bullet trajectory a lot, and this scope takes this into consideration. And also I think the humidity and a couple of other things. So basically what that means that if you take the scope on your local range, zero it on 100 meters, put in all the ballistic information needed into the app, transfer it to the scope, you can go next day to hunt in the mountains on, let's say, 3,500 meters in totally different conditions, with different humidity, with different air pressure and so on, and it will work. You will be able to shoot on, let's say, 500 meters, and if your shooting skills are good enough, you will hit the target. The only thing what is still needed is to master the wind reading, because the wind also affects the bullet trajectory, left and right, and normally this is something what this scope is not able to do by itself. So if I make a short summary, I think I explained most of the features of this scope. It's a complicated product, so this is the reason why this review is a little bit longer. But if we go to a short summary, I would say it's really nice to see that premium manufacturers are coming back to the segment of rifle scopes with integrated laser range finding capabilities and integrated ballistic calculators. I have to be honest, I expected that the first step into this direction will be made by Leica, because they are doing a lot of business with their geo-vid binoculars and so on, but it's nice to see that Swarovski was first in this segment. I also cannot praise enough that Swarovski made the display inside of the reticle so precise that the lines can be aligned on every 1.5 millimeters on 100 meters or 1.5 centimeter. I think 1.5 millimeters, yeah. 1/20th of MOA. So this precision is just phenomenal and big plus from our side, and I think most of the customers will really like it. The second thing is, when this scope is correctly set up, that means that the bullet speed is measured, not taken from the box, that you really input the right, when you're setting it, when you're zeroing it, that you input the right air pressure, on which the humidity and all other data. When you put all the right data inside, immediately afterwards, someone who has no experience with long range shooting is able to hit a gong on 600 meters with the first try, because the system works that well. This is something what really enables people without much experience, without much training, to try and do a little bit of long range shooting. I said shooting on purpose, not hunting, because I think that for long range hunting you have to practice on paper first and you have to have at least some experience. But this scope gives you many possibilities, and the entry step into the world of long range hunting is made much easier than with this scope than with anything else. I also like the design. Normally everything is high quality, from the fast focus to magnification ring, everything is really nicely made. I do like that they made a design which is very similar to conventional scopes, because when you look at it from the side, it's almost hard to see that this is a digital high-tech scope. It looks traditional. I like it. I also think that using 40mm tube is not such a bold move that anybody would think, because I think that the mount producers, they really adopt quickly, and I think that in the future a lot of scopes producers will go into the direction of making the tubes a little bit bigger, and this way they're enabling to integrate a lot of new technologies inside of the scopes. I also think that ever since Zeiss made the V8 with a 36mm tube, this is not really an issue anymore. Because this is the first premium scope of this type, normally it has some drawbacks. So if I go, in this review I already said all the sweet things, all the good things. Now I will try to summarize a couple of drawbacks. First of all is that the optical quality is not really on pair with a Z8, let's say. I personally don't take this as a big drawback, because Z8 doesn't enable you to shoot on 1000 meters with such confidence as this scope. It doesn't enable you to measure the distance to the target and so on and so on. So you get a lot of features and new technology. Normally you sacrifice some optical quality. I also think that 83% of light transmission rate is not really a problem, because if you're buying a scope like this, you will also probably buy a clip-on for low light use. And let's be honest, long range shooting is always done during the daytime. What I do think could have been done better, and I hope that on the next generation it will be done better, are the turrets. And these tools, two different tools, you need to zero the scope. I understand the philosophy that you do this on a range, only once the first time and so on. But what if you have to do it in nature because you change the ammunition, and what if you lose this small tool? It falls down on the ground somewhere, and then you have a problem. I have to be honest, when I first sighted in the first prototype, I think it was in May or something like that, this is what happened to me. I just lost this small tool, and then I needed like 5 minutes to find it in the grass. So I think this should have been done differently. I also think that this turret should have been done in a way that this tool wouldn't be needed at all. The click, feel and sound of the turret is just non-existing. It's not really important, but it would be nice if it would be a little bit more audible and a little bit more crisp. I would also say that it would be a very smart idea to offer this scope with an SR rail, because rail mounting has so many benefits that I think that the best scope that Swarovski, or the most expensive scope that Swarovski produces now, should have the rail. But I think that the only real drawback are the turrets, which, let's be honest, it is true, you only zero it once and then you never zero it again. So all in all, I think that if you put on a scale how many benefits you get with the integrated laser rangefinder and with such an advanced ballistic calculator like this in this scope, all these small drawbacks which I summarized now are not really that important. So all in all, I do understand why the back order lines are so long on this scope, because it's a great product. And for someone who is getting into long range hunting, I don't see anything similar. I don't see anything what could even match the quality and well, the basic philosophy of this scope. So all in all, definitely for someone who is doing long range shooting, almost a must-have scope. I hope that many similar products will follow in the next couple of years, from Swarovski and also from others, because now the gates are open. And I think Swarovski showed to the whole market what is the future. Thank you for watching. I hope this review is not too long. I hope you gained a lot of valuable information. For anything else, please subscribe to our channel, visit our webpage, and send us email or use comments on this video to ask questions. Thank you.